If you have a 2021 Ford F-150 like this one behind me and you want to upgrade to the best in off-road pod lights, this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the Morimoto 8-pillar kit on your Ford, and we're going to give you a couple tips and tricks along the way. So follow us and let's get started. The Morimoto 4Banger was one of the best off-road pod lights we've ever tested at Headlight Revolution. That's why we're installing this pod light today. The pod lights come in 3 different beam patterns: a wide, a spot, and a combo driving beam pattern. They also have 2 different colors. You can either get them in a white or a yellow. There's also 2 different variations of the 4Bangers. There's the HXB, which use OSRAM chips, and it's extremely bright, the brightest option when it comes to the 4Bangers. And then there's the NCS, the entry-level pod light that use Nichia chips. If you want to see how these off-road pod lights compare to a whole variety of different pod lights, watch this video where Chris goes in depth putting them head to head. Now that you've decided that the 4Banger is right for your F-150, let's get to the install. First thing we're going to do is pop the hood. All right, and we're going to start with the installation of the brackets. So follow me over to the driver's side. To give you guys a little visualization of what it's going to look like, this is the bracket and it's going to sit vertical like this. And in order to get this installed, we've got a 13mm bolt right down here and a 10mm bolt on the top. We're going to go ahead and remove those first. I do apologize, it's hard to see, but it will come out. And this is what that bolt looks like, just so you guys can see. With that 13 removed, let's go ahead and remove the 10mm bolt right here. It's right underneath the rubber here, so let's just go ahead and pull this up, and then you can see the 10mm bolt. Now thankfully Morimoto sends an install guide and tells you to put a piece of tape right here. So go ahead and take some painter's tape and put it right here, because when we're putting the bracket on, it might scratch it, and that's the last thing we want. With those 2 bolts removed, go ahead and grab your bracket, and we're going to slide it in here very carefully. Luckily there's a little bit of play here so you can work your way through. Now your bracket is set into place. We're going to go ahead and tighten those bolts down. But one thing I wanted to note, this is one of the nicest fitting 8-pillar brackets I've ever seen. Thankfully the hardware is also included in the Morimoto kit. You can get it at headlightrevolution.com. Let's go ahead and put the 13mm bolt in first. Go ahead and tighten it down. I will admit there's not a lot of room, but it is possible. Now let's go ahead and replace this 10mm bolt with the one included in the kit as well. The 10mm bolt's a little bit different because there is a little metal piece like this that also comes in the kit. It's going to sit on that hole just like that. Then you're going to take the 10mm bolt and then you're going to screw it down and tighten it down just like that. So pull your rubber piece back up and set it down. Now go back to your kit with all your bolts. What you're gonna go do is find a bolt with a T30 head on it like this. Once you have this, also locate the 10mm nut that looks just like this and the washer. We're gonna put this through the side of these 8-pillars right here. This is just going to support the bracket so you don't have a lot of bounce when you're driving down the road. So go ahead and put the bolt in first. Now go ahead and put the washer on the inside and the nut. I'm gonna take the 10mm wrench and hold it on here on the nut. And then I'm going to take my T30 and tighten it down. All right, tighten it down, boom. And just like that, it is super sturdy. This is one of the best 8-pillar brackets I've ever seen. Now go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. Once you're done, we're going to come back here. So we got the other bracket mounted over there on the passenger side. Now we got to go ahead and build the 4Banger bracket itself. So go ahead and take that bolt that looks like this, and we're going to feed it from the top down on the surface mount mounted to the 8-pillar kit. So set the bracket down, grab this bolt, and feed it down. Now there's a 17mm nut just like this. Now we're going to tighten this down, but we're going to tighten it down all the way in a little bit because we are going to adjust the aim of these 4Bangers. So go ahead and tighten this bolt down. As you can see, you can still kind of twist it, and that's exactly what we want. Now is the best part because you get to pick which Morimoto 4Banger you want. You can figure out if you want it in a combo driving beam pattern, a wide, or a spot. You also get to choose which color you want, if you want it in yellow or white. The guy who owns this Ford F-150 wanted the combo driving beam pattern, which is an incredible beam pattern, especially when using it on the A-pillars. And then it's also the HXB, which is the highest level 4-banger out there for a Morimoto. It's extremely bright, it's intense, and it's definitely a good choice when mounting to the A-pillars. So let's go ahead and mount this real quick. It sits in here like this, and then you got two small bolts on this side, and they're just T30 Torx bolts. So go ahead and tighten those down. All right, now I'm not tightening that down all the way either, because once this is all done, the wirings ran and whatnot, we're gonna go ahead and align these. Now, Morimoto actually recommends putting the combo driving beam patterns over top of each other, so they would be aimed in just a little bit, but we'll get to that later. I just wanted to let you guys know. Do the same thing on the other side. This right here is the relay, and what we're gonna do is mount this upright. Do not mount it down, we're gonna mount it upright. The coolest part is you can mount this wherever you'd like. I'm gonna mount it in the middle, and I'll show you that in just a second. There's also two Deutsch connectors, and they'll look like this. They say light 1 and light 2. Light 1 we're gonna run to the passenger side, and light 2 we're gonna run to the driver's side. Now there is an extension harness so that you can get light 1 or light 2 over to the driver's side. We're gonna be working all in the passenger side by the battery, because there is also a positive and negative battery terminal. We're gonna connect these at the very end. This is the last thing we want to connect because we are dealing with electricity and we don't wanna short anything. Now on one end of this harness, you're going to notice that there is a switch. This has an M on it and it glows when you're powered up. This is the Morimoto switch, and as much as I like the switch, you can definitely disconnect it here with the barrel connector. Now this right here will allow you to connect any other switch, but that's not the only benefit of the barrel connector. You can also pass this through the firewall, which we're going to do in just a second, instead of passing the entire switch through the firewall. That would be just a terrible time and not very fun at all. The barrel connector is already difficult enough, and this is what Morimoto thought ahead on and did a very well job executing. Now, they also thought ahead if you have upfitter switches. They also have this bare wire that's connected to a barrel connector, just like this. This would go in place of your Morimoto switch. So if you don't want the switch and you disconnected it because you have upfitter switches, set that aside and then go ahead and take the single wire barrel connector and connect it in place. Then you go and tighten it down. This Ford F-150 doesn't have upfitter switches, so I'm actually not going to connect this. I am going to use the switch, but I'll leave it disconnected for now. Enough talking, let's get to the mounting. Now the first thing I'm going to mount is the relay, and like I said, you can mount this wherever you'd like. If you want to tuck the wiring just a little bit better, you're definitely free to do so. This is just an example. What I'm going to do is actually just zip tie this up right here, right on this big old hole. There's plenty of room for the positive and negative battery connections, and there's plenty of room to run the switch wire all the way across the engine bay and into the cab of the truck. However you mount it, just make sure it's mounted vertically. Perfect. Now the relay is mounted. I'm gonna go ahead and connect an extension harness. This right here, light 1 or light 2, it doesn't matter which side goes to which. Doesn't matter if you're on the driver or passenger side. Connect one of the extension harnesses to say light 1. Let's pass light 1 over to the passenger side. The extension harness just has a female and a male Deutsch connector. So we're gonna go ahead and plug it in. We're gonna tidy up that wiring over there in just a second, but let's go ahead and move to light number 2. We're gonna route this over here, and just making sure that we're not gonna have the hinges close on the wiring. That's the last thing you want. We're gonna take this 4-banger wiring and connect it down here. Make sure you hear them click. So we've mounted light 1 and light 2 to the 4-bangers on the A-pillar kit. We've also mounted the relay. The next thing we're going to do is run this switch wire through the firewall. I will admit it's a little bit difficult, but with a little bit of finessing, you're gonna get it just fine. I'm gonna pass this wiring over to the passenger side, kind of like I did the light 1 Deutsch connector. Now the wire we're gonna pass through the firewall is actually on the switch side, so meet me over in the cab of the vehicle. So now come over to the inside of the vehicle. We're gonna be mounting this switch, and we're gonna be passing this wiring, this barrel connector, through the firewall. We're gonna pass it from the cab side out to the engine bay. It's actually gonna be much easier in this install. Now this switch can be put anywhere you want to in the vehicle. Where this Ford F-150 owner wants it is right here. And it is possible, but there is a little plastic backing on the backside I have to also drill through. You could put it anywhere else you would like or see fit. As you can see here, there's a pretty big depth on this switch, which means it's important not to find a place in this cab where it has metal or wiring. You don't want to drill a hole for this switch and then just mess up all the wiring. That's the last thing you want. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole first, then I'm going to pop this off. To do so, I'm going to use a step bit, and I'm going to drill it out to 3/4 of an inch. If you haven't done this very often, you can definitely use a Sharpie, mark it out exactly where you want it. With this nice 3/4 inch hole drilled, I'm gonna actually just take another drill bit and drill through the other piece of plastic that's on the backside. Just so you guys are aware, I've already taken this whole panel off one time to make sure there's nothing interfering with this drill bit. Last thing I want is to drill through wiring. So I'm just gonna drill through the second piece of plastic with this drill bit. Now I'm gonna take these panels off to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. First thing I'm gonna do is take off this side panel here. If I can just pull it out with my fingers. You can also use a pry tool. There you are. So mounting this switch right here is not very easy to show on camera, so I do apologize, but I will say it's really easy to do by feel. Once we remove this side panel over here, and once you drill out the hole that's right here, you can go ahead and install your switch. It's got this little locking ring. What we're gonna do is actually remove this from the switch, and then we're going to pass this switch through that hole you just drilled. Then what you're gonna do is take this lock washer and put it back on the backside, pinching the plastic in between this switch and the washer. So that would be the switch, the piece of plastic or whatever you drilled through, and then the washer getting screwed on the backside. Now go ahead and pass the wiring through the hole. And I'm gonna actually reach on the side and grab the excess. Make sure the M is facing upwards and push it through that hole. Now go ahead and take your locking washer, feed it through here, and then you're not gonna see this on camera, but I'm going to tighten this down on the backside of the switch. Now just like that, the locking washer is connected on the backside. I tightened it down hand tight. It will hold the switch in so you can push the switch on and off. Now for the fun part, we get to pass this barrel connector through the firewall. Not this side spot, this was just so I can put my hand through there and put the locking nut back on. So go ahead, route this down underneath the cab. Take it out of there. And then you're gonna reach up with this barrel connector right next to all the other wiring. You can cut a little slit in that rubber grommet and push the wiring through. Once it's through the firewall, you'll see it on the other side, and then you can go ahead and connect that barrel connector that you have laying over there. So I'm gonna cut that slit, pass this through the rubber grommet, and then I'm gonna meet you on the other side. All right, so I'm on the driver's side in the engine bay here. On my right here, this is the wire that we just passed through the firewall. On my left is the wire that we passed on over. So what we're gonna do is just connect these barrel connectors. Do not forget to connect this switch once you pass it through. Once it's tightened down, it'll look like this. So your switch is finally connected inside the cab. Now the last thing you gotta do, and it's real simple, is connect the positive and negative battery terminals. Starting with the negative, there's a 10 up here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it. Put the ground terminal over top of that. And tighten it back down. Your negative wire is connected. Now go ahead and connect your positive. Pull this rubber piece back. This is an 11mm nut. Let's go ahead and remove that. And put this rubber cover back on. Now go ahead and test that button by turning on your 4Bangers, making sure that they work, as well as tidying up all the wiring. And as you can see, it's actually not that hard to install the 8-pillar kit from Morimoto. The 4Bangers look super cool on your F-150. As long as you tidy up all of that wiring, you're good to go. Now go outside and align those 4Bangers down in the center, make sure they're vertically aligned, and you're good to go. If you want to see what else we have to offer for your Ford F-150, go to headlightrevolution.com, type in your year, make, and model, and we'll show you everything there.